Hello and welcome to our Sunday talk. This is a talk arranged by Brahma Kumaris, Finland. And we start with few words in Finnish. It's about translation. Ja tosiaan tämä luento myös käännetään. Ja jos haluatte kuunnella suomeksi tämän Margaretin luennon, niin tuolta löytyy tällainen maapallon kuva, mistä painatte interpretation ja valitkaa sieltä Finnish, jos olette Windowsilla tai Macillä, ja kännykällä, jos olette, niin löytäkää tuo 3 pistettä ja painakaa sieltä ja sieltä myös valitkaa käännös ja kielellä sitten Finnish, niin pääsette kuuntelemaan suomen kielellä. So, welcome, and today's topic is emotional freedom, and we have a guest speaker from London, Margaret Barron. And Margaret Barron has actually, hello, welcome. She has actually visited Finland. I think it was 6 years ago, physically. And it was wonderful. She kept us workshops and kept our meditation center very busy with different kind of lovely workshops we did. So I'm looking forward for today's talk and a few words about Margaret. And she has been studying Raj Yoga for almost 30 years. And she has particular interest in how transformative thinking and personal practice work together to make spirituality practical for everyday living. And she has a degree in adult education and training, and she works as an empowered living consultant. It would be nice to hear some words you're sharing about what is this empowered living consultant. Sounds very interesting. And what I can say about Margaret is that she has always lovely enthusiasm, and she is really creative. So I think her way of explaining spirituality in a creative way really makes us enthusiastic and some good inspirations. So I'm really looking forward. And today's topic was emotional freedom. If life is bringing some unexpected negative moments for us and we find ourselves in a spinning, what can we do? How can we master our emotions and enjoy our life? So these are very big questions and deep things. But warm welcome for Margaret, and I hand it over to you. Some reason we don't, yes, now.
Yeah, thank you for the lovely introduction. And maybe I'll explain the title, the job title, as part of one of the points that I'm going to share about, because there was a kind of realization and I changed my job title. So yeah, it's a big topic, emotional freedom, and we've only got sort of a short time to talk about sort of a lifelong journey, really, to move from where you're at to a place where you feel free. And I really like the picture that you had at the beginning of a person standing on the mountain with their arms open, because in a way that isn't what emotional freedom is, but it's kind of the nearest we can get. It's probably physical freedom, isn't it? You've left the world behind, you've left your job behind, and you're kind of doing something new and different, and that does bring a sort of freedom. But we all know you can go to a different place and you take all your baggage with you. So, but it is a lovely image that invokes that kind of desire to be free. So what I thought I'd do is to take the word freedom and use that as an acronym or mnemonic to help us remember and break it down, because these topics are quite big, and let's break it down into little portions so we can manage it. And then at the end, I have a model that I'll show you, which hopefully brings it all together and helps you understand. And maybe there might be questions based on that, which will come after. So if I took the F of freedom, I would start with free. But what do we want to be free? What do we mean by free? And, most of the time, a lot of our thought patterns are caught up in other people, things we have to do, the endless to-do list that will never end. And we're doing a lot to kind of sort things out. So sometimes we get caught up in trying to sort out other people, but you might have realized by now that's an impossible feat. You want them to do one thing, they do another. So yeah, what do we want to be free from? And if we for a moment pick a situation, maybe there's a situation that's going on in your life, or a certain person in your life that is bringing up some kind of feeling in you, and then if you hold that in your mind as we go through the talk, it'll probably end up, the talk will be more meaningful to you because you're placing it on something that's a reality in your life right now. And I can't, at the moment, there's no one in my life that have horrendous feelings for anything like that, but there's certainly ones that can push my buttons. So I have to still be very careful of what I'm doing. So I think when we talk about free, most of us, when we grew up, we thought free was that you can get in a car and you can drive wherever you like and do whatever you want and whatever. But in the context of emotional freedom, it really means that you're able to experience your own peace and your own love and your own happiness at will. You've got the freedom to do that. There's no kind of layers or blocks that are kind of shadowing over that. So that would be you're free. You're choosing what you want to experience and you go into that experience. And I think that is a high level of freedom, and we're all sort of striving to get there. And there's a lot of clearing out that goes on before we can really reach that kind of level. But we get along the way glimpses of it, lovely glimpses of it. So I'm just checking if I'm talking too fast. The translators. Okay.
I think it's okay. I haven't heard any panic messages.
All right. It's okay. Okay. Yeah. So, to really feel free, it's an internal freedom. You can have freedom externally, but not be free inside. And there's many times in my life where I've seen people who've got on the outside everything, money, everything, property, everything. But inside there's such a pain, such a hurt that they're not free, and so there's a lot that's happened on our journey. And a lot of it's now gone into the subconscious, and that's why it can be triggered at any time. You're going along fine, you had a good morning and you're going along fine, and then something happens and suddenly a kind of emotion comes up by something someone said or a situation that happened, and you're suddenly in this big feeling about it. And sometimes the feeling, and I don't know if you've ever had this experience, the feeling it seems much more enormous, much bigger, should we say, much bigger than the event. And you can't work out why this little trivial situation has brought up such emotion for you. But the reason is it's hit things in the subconscious. And there may be a whole trajectory of feelings around that kind of emotion that now have come to the surface. And, you know, you may be thinking, why has that bothered me so much? It's not the situation that's bothered you or the person, but it's hit like, shall we say, a lump of emotion that's now whoop, come up. So we need some kind of methodology to manage this. And that's what, you know, we'll look at, and the model addresses. And it takes courage. It takes courage to, when the feelings come, to work with them, to address them. And so often we don't. We put it back on the situation. It's the situation that's responsible, or the person that triggered your buttons that's responsible. And at that moment, we lose an opportunity to heal. And that's why it takes courage to, and I would say some kind of practice, some kind of spiritual practice, to be able to hold that feeling long enough until it subsides without projecting it and without suppressing it. And it's an art. And once you've done it a few times and you get the hang of it, you start to know how to do it. And you don't get so worried about feelings. In fact, you sort of get to know that the bigger the emotion that comes up, the greater the healing potential. You know, so for the R, sorry, I just lost my ear. So for the R, I would take responsibility. And, you know, in our own lives, we are responsible for what we think and what we feel. That is not in the hands of anyone else. But sometimes that's what the projection becomes. It's like, why did they say that? You know, and we point outwards and make them responsible for this feeling that's come up. Okay, they said something, but the feeling that comes up is my feeling. It's come from inside me. Therefore, it's something to do with me. It's not something to do with them. You know, and but the illusion is so powerful that it looks like it's about them. So, you know, maybe you were sort of having a lovely morning and everything was going well and you felt good about yourself, and then someone comes and says something and you suddenly feel really hurt. And of course, it looks like they're responsible for your hurt because of what they said. So then the most common thing is to project your hurt onto them and make them responsible for it. But at that moment, you abdicate your own responsibility because the feeling has come from within you and therefore you're responsible for it. And in the Raj Yoga that we study, that everything that kind of emerges from inside yourself has been at some point, you might have long forgotten when, at some point you've created it. And if you've created it, you can uncreate it. But in a way, we give our power away when we make someone else responsible for what we're feeling. Or if we suppress it, it doesn't go away, it just builds up. It's just like the volcano is just gone down a bit, but it will come again. So we learn to take these opportunities. So, and I think that the E for me would be about empowerment. And this is where I'll bring in the change about the job title in a way, because I think we can spend a lot of time in self-improvement and not in empowerment. And there's quite a difference, and it's taken me years to really get the difference. I suddenly woke up. So in a way, when we're looking at self-empowerment, we're moving into a state of self-respect that's based on the kind of innate of the self, the kind of inner world of the self, we could say the kind of spiritual part of the self. And as I mentioned at the beginning, the freedom is to be able to experience your own peace, your own love, your own joy, which is the innate qualities of the self. That is who we are, these beings of peace, love, joy. So empowerment is when we're doing things to access and strengthen those qualities, the truth about the self. That is what empowerment is. But so often we get caught up in just trying to improve our life. Like, it's almost like a bit like moving things around. So we might, do things on a physical level to improve ourselves, new house, new carpets, new chairs. And for a while, that will make us feel good, for a while, not long, but it will make us feel good. Or we start to even trying to improve ourselves, I need to be a bit more kind. I need to be a bit more generous. And so in a way, I'm trying to improve Margaret. And this would be where the whole thing of personal development. So in the past, I used to call myself personal development trainer, which is about trying to improve your own self, trying to kind of progress a bit. But that's very different from empowerment, because empowerment is of the innate core of yourself. So when we're in just improvement, we're just trying to get our personality a little bit better, or, improve the dynamics in some kind of relationships. Empowerment is of a very different order. So, and in a way, to really empower yourself, you have to kind of remove yourself from the identity of Margaret, or whatever your name is. And, it's like come out of that, all the identities related to that, and see yourself quite differently, see yourself as a spirit. And in English language, I don't know about Finnish, but in English language, the clue is there because it's human being, and they're two words, and they're equal letters, and they both words begin with a capital letter. So it's saying it's two parts, and this two parts are working together. And that's why we say human being. But I think until we really understand this, we're thinking human being, one concept. I'm a human being. And we're not really seeing that it's two words, two parts. And so we can spend a lot of time in the human improvement bit. And where empowerment lies is in the being bit. So this is why I changed the title, because I suddenly realized I don't want to be just changing the human bit. I think it is about empowering. It's empowering the being, and therefore you will live differently, if that makes sense. Well, I can take questions. I don't know if I can explain it more than that at the moment, but it is a different way of operating. So all the self-help stuff is about the human experience, but empowerment is about a spiritual experience. It's about going to higher levels of states of being. It's not just about being a bit more kind or a bit more generous. So that would be my first D. And leading on from that, my second would be that in this world where anything can happen unexpectedly, a changing world, we don't know tomorrow, really. We really don't. And, the laws of each country, it's like people can't keep up with it. They're changing all the time. The rules are changing all the time. And so in order to get some kind of stability, you have to tap into something that's more stable. If you want stability, you have to tap into something that's stable. Well, the world isn't stable. It's changing all the time. And so a wise person will tap into something that's more eternal, because there's stability in that which is eternal. And of course, in order to tap into something eternal, in a way, you have to tap into something that's beyond this world. And certainly in the practice of Raj Yoga meditation, we learn to take our mind beyond this world to dimensions that are much more stable. They're not influenced by the kind of changing nature of the world. And as you access those other dimensions, it allows you to become more stable, because they're stable. They're still, silent, stable. And as you access them, you become more still, silent, and stable. But that doesn't mean that you don't live in the world. It's just that you bring more of that stillness and stability into the world. So it's not like an escapism. It's taking your mind there, that you can experience something that you then bring into the world. So, and I had a experience last October. I just, I'd come home, I'd left the kind of place where I do my morning work, and I'd, just left it, and I'd gone to play some badminton, and I got home, and then I got a call, and there was a family situation that was, emerging. Someone was looking after someone who's got multiple disabilities, and I think they had tried to take on too much, and they were moving into kind of like a breakdown kind of situation. So, suddenly I had to leave. I just had to leave, and I couldn't think about my desk, how I'd left my desk. Luckily, it wasn't too bad, but I couldn't do anything. I just literally had to book a train, pack some clothes, and go. And it was and I didn't know when I was coming back. And it was quite an experience that I will treasure in a way, because you're going into the unknown, and you don't know for how long. And, you just have to work with the situation, with what you've got. And so it really, I realized, but because I have this practice of tapping into something eternal, and I would say, if I'm honest, a being that's eternal as well. So a place and a being that's eternal, and I could draw that energy. It didn't really matter to me so much what was going to go on down here. I just knew that I'd be able to move through it. I just kind of knew that. But we leave home and we think we're coming back. We never know. We never know. And that was an experience. And I think I didn't come back for probably 3 weeks. And I only came back for 10 days, and then I had to go again. And then I came back for another bit, and I had to go again. So, all in all, from October to the end of January, I wasn't, in my normal situation. And when I look back at it, so much brilliant learning from it. I could do the whole talk on that. But what it told me is that we have to really get another level of stability, because this is going to change, and you just don't know how it's going to change and what it's going to change. And you could suddenly be in situations where all your comforts are not there. All the things that you've created around you as your comforts, I went into situations that they weren't desperate, but they're not the comforts I know, but it's a different situation. So you have to be quick adapt, quick. And you have to go there with a feeling of serving completely. So anyway, so that really taught me big lessons about, you need something else other than what you call your life. So you need something greater than just the human experience, and it's more of that kind of being experience, and that can then carry you through the human experience. So my D would be, in order to be free, we have to be quite determined. And I like this word, determination, because within the word determination in English, it's got termination in it, which means there's something, in order to move forward and to be free, to have emotional freedom, there's going to be something you have to let go of. And probably the hardest for all of us is our past. But it doesn't exist anymore. And, you know, it exists in our memory track, but it's not real anymore because it doesn't exist. And so anything that happened 5 years ago or 10 years ago, everything has moved on. Every person who is involved in that situation will have moved on in some way. Maybe they haven't become enlightened, but they will have moved on. Lots of things would have happened in their life that will have had an impact, you know. But in our memory, we still see it as the same. And we may be stuck in the emotions of that time. But it's a complete illusion. It doesn't exist. Even you getting up this morning, it doesn't exist anymore. It's just a memory. And so the only moment that ever exists is now. But you have to be quite determined to live in the now and not be remembering. And I feel that a lot of work, personally, had to do a lot of work with this to let go of some of the, what I would call traumas of my life. But you can do it. You really can, but you just have to empower the present. And that's what it's all about. The more you empower your present, the less impact the past will have. And then you'll start to really look at it, and it sort of reads a bit like a story. You know, they were just characters. You were just playing parts. You start to see it more and more like no one could help what they did. It was just part of a kind of like a grand performance. And certainly I feel definitely forgiven myself for anything that happened, and forgiven everybody else. It was just like, oh, that's the way it was. You know, huge good wishes to you now for your life, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. But I mean, about 10 years ago, I had people who walked into my life from the past, you know, unexpectedly. And it did bring up emotions, because I think at the time of those things, I never really healed them. I didn't know how to. So I suppressed it all and got on with life. But it was always there in the subconscious. And every so often it would pop up. And so about 10 years ago, in a way, I was forced to really resolve it within myself. And the model that I'm going to show you in a minute has come from that time. So, you know, it was a very valuable experience to go through. And in both situations now, there's a lot of light and a lot of peace. And it seems like because the work was done, it was finished, properly finished. And so that enables to be really present. In a way, it was all an illusion anyway. As I said before, it was all past, it was all illusion, but I hadn't processed it. So it was still kind of in the subconscious, like this lump. And that's blocking you having been able to have the freedom, the emotional freedom to really experience those beautiful qualities, love, peace. And I can feel now to access those qualities is much easier than 10 years ago. I didn't realize how blocked I was. And it's when there's a big emotional block, it makes you operate in certain ways. And the ego operates in certain ways around that. And then as you let go of that, then, you know, how you interact even with other people completely unrelated to that situation changes. So it's really worth working when the energies come up, because it can all be healed. I totally believe that. And so my O would be open to newness. You know, if we want emotional freedom, we have to be prepared to do something different and bring in some kind of newness, and not allow the same thought patterns to keep regurgitating in our minds. So in a way, it needs a whole new awareness. And And probably the greatest newness that you can ever bring in, I'm not saying it's the easiest, but it's probably the greatest, is to love yourself as that being. And that is probably to be open to the newness of seeing yourself in a new way, is probably the greatest thing you can ever do. Because as soon as you start to see yourself in a new way, to kind of really say, I'm letting go of the old thing. And you might need to go through a really rejuvenation, revamping process. But when you can really love yourself as that being, not loving yourself based on your past, not loving yourself based on anything physical, but loving yourself based on that being, and really working to enjoy being the being that you are. So we're all unique, we're all special, and to love that. And when you do, you start to come out of these comparison games, or putting yourself down, or undermining yourself, sabotaging yourself, because all these things go on if you haven't really celebrated yourself. And there's no one on the planet like me, and there's no one on the planet like you. So we might as well get on and celebrate. And there was a lovely line someone reminded me of. It was like, you might as well be yourself because everyone else is taken. You know, and to sort of enjoy your own existence and whatever you're on the planet to do, to discover it and enjoy it. And that the challenge is to find a new you, almost the real you, that's kind of so wanting to express itself. And of course, when you do, you're going to see situations in a new way, and you're going to see others in a new way. And then the M for me would be magic, because I think when you do the one before the O, and you're open to the newness of yourself, watch the magic begin. Things will start to happen that you couldn't even possibly imagine. And, you know, you'll find yourself in situations that just enhance yourself. They bring out the best in you, and all these things will start to happen. But it really is about being willing to kind of let go of the old framework of yourself and move into that new state of being. So I think that's probably enough speaking. And then I think, have I got time to show the model? Yeah. So I'm just going to share the screen, and I'll talk you through this. Whoops, sorry, I didn't set it up properly. I've called it emotional freedom, and I put a picture of a butterfly because that's probably in the natural world, that's the biggest transformation, isn't it? That caterpillar and the butterfly, they're so different. And in a way, same for us. The new you could be completely different from what you've been kind of managing with. It's almost like the butterfly in you wants to kind of emerge now. So this is the model that kind of came to me over a little while when I was working through some of these quite powerful emotions that came up, and they were powerful ones. They were things like regret, guilt, shame, darkness. I mean, they were quite heavy, some of the feelings, and I'd already been on the spiritual path for a while, so I was thinking, oh my gosh, you know, I shouldn't be feeling this, but actually I had to go through it. So here we go. So our starting point is we are beings of light, and we are having a human experience. So we are beings of light in a body, and they're both working together to have a human experience, but we are that light. We are the light. We're not the body. That's the basic starting point for spirituality, for Raj Yoga anyway. And as I mentioned before, the real deep qualities of the self are peace, that love, joy. This is like innate. This is the truth about the self before all the layers came on. This is the beauty of the self. There's other qualities too, but these are the main ones. And these are the ones we're searching for. You want to feel more peaceful. You want to feel love and be loved, and you want to feel joy. You want to feel happiness. And, you know, there is also a supreme source of peace, love, and joy. And as we connect with that supreme source, and this is where we move into what is tapping into something that's eternal, because that supreme source is always in that state, never changing. So when we connect with a source that's stable, we start to feel more stable. And also the energy of that supreme source, which is eternally peace, love, and joy, empowers our peace, love, and joy. So, you know, it's almost like we start to receive the energy that empowers the innate in us, the truth in us, the real qualities in us. And this is what happens when we meditate. The aim of Raja Yoga meditation is to take time out to empower the truth about ourselves. And when we do that, we start to feel secure, because we're building up, we're tapping into our truth, and we will start to feel very lovely in the security of that eternity, and that we're tapping into something that is not determined by the world. It's coming from inside us. It's not like going to a lake to feel peaceful, or we have to find Mr. Right to feel love, or we have to go out on that night out to feel happiness, joy. No, it's coming from inside us. And because it's coming from inside us and it's being empowered, we feel secure. But we know then there's this thing called life, which often gets in the way. And just trying to move this around a bit out of the way. Okay, so there's this thing called life, and life has lots of people, situations. It's all happening all the time. It's a never-ending movement of everything. And sometimes something can happen and it triggers the kind of wound in the being. So it triggers a layer. It's not triggering the core, because the core is peace, love, and joy. But it's, you know, around that peace, love, and joy, as we've gone through life, we've built up layers, maybe traumas, negative experiences, hurt, pain, coping mechanisms. So this personal situation maybe triggers the sadness of me, or, you know, the feeling that I'm no good, I'm bad, or, you know, I'm less than. Or it can just bring up the anger. You know, it hits all the things that have been suppressed, and the anger of that suddenly comes out, and it can be sometimes quite surprising. And, you know, in a way, we could say that the trigger has come to show us this, to show us that we still got this. And then we can start to do something about it. But so often we miss this opportunity. So if a trigger comes, and even if it brings up something in yourself, and you're prepared to work with it, work with those feelings, that is going to lead you to healing. But so often we don't do that. So often what will happen is our mind will go into a spin, and it will start to project back onto the trigger with questions like, why did they say that to me? How could they possibly say that to me? What's going on here? You know, I'm feeling disturbed. What's going on? You know, and it's kind of the questionings. It might not come as crystal clear as a what, but it is something questioning. When's this all going to change? Or when are they going to leave? Could be something like that. Who's responsible? Which is a big one in our world now, the blame game. Where's this all going to lead? So what happens? How am I going to cope? So what happens is, rather than taking the opportunity to heal like this, we start to project onto the trigger, and the trigger starts to consume our mind. And as the trigger is consuming our mind, we feel less pain because our minds are now active with the trigger, making the trigger responsible. And we call this projection. Just going to move this a minute. Sorry, I'm just going to see if I can. So we call this projection. So at the moment we're projecting onto the trigger, we're losing the opportunity to heal the sad, bad, or mad. I'm hoping that makes sense. But the illusion is very powerful. It looks like it's the trigger that's caused my pain, but it's not true. The other thing that we do is we numb our feelings. So a situation happened and we had feelings about it. And because those feelings may be painful, we do things to numb our feelings. And we all have our own way of numbing. We've become expert in it. So we all have our own way. So maybe that food, we go eat something. And while we're having that experience of eating, the feeling gets pushed to the back of the mind, because now we're in a essential experience, and that's occupying our mind. And therefore we don't feel the other stuff. Could be drink, not so bad. It's like, oh, I'm going to go get a cup of tea, but we still use tea to take our sadness down. But of course it could be alcohol. And then you could see that a lot of these things are the kind of seed of addiction. The numbing becomes the seed of addiction. TV or films. And I think we've all done this to escape, to use the television or films just to escape. And it does it brilliantly, because while you're watching and you're totally absorbed in that film, and you're not going to be thinking about that other thing. So, and you're basically going with what the director wants you to feel, director of the film, TV show. And so therefore you're in that, and it's all absorbing, and the other thing gets pushed to your mind. But there's going to be a point where the TV show's over and the film's over, and you're still going to have to deal with it. But you may have suppressed it enough that it's gone for a while. Sleep. We get fed up with the day and we think, I just have to go to sleep. And of course, we may sleep, and when we wake up, we may feel a bit better because our body's been rested. But I think we've all had experience where you didn't resolve something properly and you went to sleep. And when you wake up in the morning, it's the first thing you think about, and you feel kind of still tired because it's probably been ruminating in your mind all night long. Let me just move this a bit. Oh yeah, shopping. So we may use shopping, whether it's not so much going to shops now, but a little bit now, but online. During the lockdown, those courier companies were just busy all day long, weren't they, delivering things for people? So shopping can be a way of kind of numbing, because while we're looking through the catalogs and while we're not thinking about that other feeling. And so when we project, and but this one, the numbing, we call it, hang on, what's happened here? Yes, so we call it suppression. So here comes the trigger, and the trigger comes to show us, that personal situation comes to show us what we still need to heal, but we miss the opportunity because we project or suppress. But we can heal all the feelings. but it takes courage and honesty, because when we get triggered, we have to be quite honest and say, this is not about that personal situation. This is about me. This is about me and something that needs to be healed. This is revealing something inside me. And I totally believe that if you can hold the feeling long enough and be honest about it, you will go through that feeling and you will feel that it's been released. And certainly once you learn to make that connection with the Supreme Source, it almost, that energy gets involved in your healing. So while we're projecting and suppressing, we can't heal, can't take the help to heal. But as soon as, even if it's the worst feeling in the world, if we're honest about it, we can get help and it can get healed. So one of the things that helps us not to project is to accept and to suppress. One thing is to accept whatever the trigger is, accept it. And whatever feeling it brings in you, accept it. Because the quicker you accept it, you won't go into projection and suppression. Just think, this has come to help me heal. But when we keep going into the projection and suppression, we become more, I don't know if the words come up now. I've got this little bar in front of me. Yeah, we feel more and more insecure. The more we project and the more we suppress, we feel more and more insecure. So what this model is saying is, first find your security in something beyond the world, in your own truth, independent of the world and from that Supreme Source. And then, build up that kind of muscle in a way, and then anything can be healed. So just moving to the next slide, which sort of summarizes it. And then I think it's time for meditation. I think I might have missed the timing, completely messed up your program, but there you go. So here's the methodology. Feel the feeling. So when something happens, feel the feeling, yet do not become the emotion. So you become the observer of the feeling. And it could be physical, it could be quite emotional, but yeah, you're feeling it, but part of you is watching it. And maybe you say, wow, this is interesting. Look what this situation's brought up in me. So you can have your own way. So you're witnessing it, you allow it, you don't run from it, you don't project it back, you don't suppress it, and ultimately it will be released. And afterwards you'll feel really calm, and something quite major's happened. You've released something. It's not in you anymore. It's kind of gone. So that was my little presentation. So I don't know if there's any time for question and answers.
Oh, thank you, Margaret. I really like this explaining what happens. We could all relate to these different situations and triggers and sleep and eating, but also if we go for that spin, we miss the healing. And you showed it very nicely. What is the root for healing? So very beautiful. Thank you. There is one, we take one question and then we can go for the meditation. And if there is time, yes, there is time for one question. How can we help others to release the suppressed traumatic feelings?
You cannot. People, it's going to happen in their own time, but what you can do is have such good wishes for them. And you can maybe create an environment where they feel safe and they feel peaceful. And in their own time, they will release, they will work through their own thing. And I had a kind of example of this where one of my sisters passed on in the summer and has two sons. And one of the sons was why I had to go to that situation. But the other one, everyone has to go through their own process of coming to terms with something like that. And you can't speed that along. But while I was there, and I had time there was a time when I was staying in the same house, and I just made sure that, that I created a nice atmosphere. If I cooked something, I left something for them, and just was generally supportive.
Mm.
But in their own time, they have to come to terms with it themselves. So we can't really push them along, but we can have, always have good wishes, and when we're around them, come with our own, without it being too overt, come with our own, peacefulness and calmness, and and be willing to listen if they want to say anything. And when people are grieving, they can say really crazy things, don't make sense at all, not logical, especially if someone's gone to kind of breakdown level, and you just have to be okay with that and know that they will heal in their time.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you. Yes, Dipti is also saying thank you for the answer. And now, if I can invite you to keep us guided meditation, that would be very enjoyable.
So are we talking about 5 minutes? Is that keep with your
10 minutes is fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's take this opportunity to be with ourselves. And a lovely image has come on the screen of a being of light. And, this is an artist's representation of that being. So if we, beyond the body, this is what we would look like. So let's get a sense of that. So first, let's acknowledge the body and appreciate it. It's amazing, amazing instrument we have to use. And let's just relax it. Just give it permission to relax. And some key areas to pay attention to: the feet. Let your feet relax. Let your belly be soft. Let your shoulders drop. Let your hands be gently placed in your lap. Let your jawbone be soft. You may have to slightly drop it. Let your eyes soften. And imagine that your forehead is being smoothed out. And all that tension has been wiped away. And then we can bring ourselves into the present moment just by watching our breath go in and out. Each breath is always in the present moment. And then we're ready to begin Raj Yoga meditation. The first 2 steps could be any meditation practice, but now we're ready for Raj Yoga meditation. So Raj Yoga meditation begins when we become aware of ourselves as that spiritual being, the being of light. And that being of light sits in the center of the forehead, behind the eyes. And as we focus on that being of light, we can just let go of thoughts about the human experience for a while. Just let it be, accept it as it is. And as we focus on the self as that being of light, very subtle light, not a physical light, as like an invisible light, if you like. What happens is we start to experience our thoughts slowing down. Even space between our thoughts. And for this exercise, just imagine that the space between your thoughts is far more important than your thoughts. So be curious about that space. And just sit yourself in that space between thoughts. And that space is still and silent and peaceful. It's always there. It's just so often that we're making the thoughts important. But the space is so much more important because it brings you into a feeling of peace. Feeling of your own stillness. And you get a sense of your own beingness, a peaceful being. Can I love myself as a peaceful being? Let me love myself as that peaceful being. Let my love be of the being, not the character that operates in the human experience. Let my love be for myself as that pure, peaceful being. And let's connect with that supreme energy. That supreme energy loves the spiritual being. That supreme energy wants to be in touch with that, with the self as that spiritual being. And as move into that feeling of peace, able to connect with the peace of the spiritual being. A peace that is forever. A peace that's so overflowing like an ocean. A peace that sustains and uplifts. An eternal peace that will never go away, will never end, always stable. The Supreme is always stable in peace. So as that connection happens, then as a being, become more peaceful, more stable, more secure. It's nothing to do with the world and what's happening with the world or what's happening in the world. It's a peace that's built on stability, inner security, empowerment. Then as I come back into the world, into the human experience, I bring that peace with me as an expression, patience, tolerance, gentleness, quietness, Om Shanti. Om, I am Shanti, peace. I am a peaceful being. This is the true, eternal nature of the self.
How wonderful meditation. Such a lovely and deep. It's an art, even via this Zoom, to get such a lovely meditation. And nice that our students are also waving for you. If you want to come for a camera, that's lovely. Yes, wonderful. So we will finish here. And we just remind all our listeners that we continue next Sunday. So you're welcome to join. But so much thank you for Margaret for a lovely, lovely session and making it very clear today. And thank you for everyone also waving for Margaret and wishing you a lovely evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care. Bye. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, bye.